one of the biggest two things I would say. One is get involved. Get involved on all levels. Get involved at all levels. Be talking, be educating yourself, be reading up, because that is the tool. That is literally how the leaders in South Africa worked the liberation movement. It was just reading. It was through an exchange of thoughts and ideas. And if young black Americans can continue to enrich themselves with information, that information genuinely is, it's I always say to people, like, oh, it's such a simple solution, and yet so many people don't choose to use it. And that is, knowledge is power. It genuinely is. And to those youngsters, I go, you have tools at your disposal that nobody had before. You can get a book at a click of a button, just press your screen, and there's the information that you seek. You don't even have to buy it anymore. There's Wikipedia, there's everything that's out there telling you what you need to know. So to those people, I just say, get involved, read, educate yourself, learn what you can do to overcome these odds and to become better than the system that has been designed to oppress you. But one of the most important things, and that's what my mom taught me, and it's so hard to do, it is genuinely hard to do, and I know some people don't agree with me. Be careful. Be careful that you are not governed by your anger. Be careful that your anger doesn't turn to hate, because if you are not careful, you will be in a place where you are blinded by that. If you are not careful, you will be in a space where you are not trying to fix, you are trying to get revenge. You are trying to beat that child that beat you, and you're going to grow up and you're in a world that is against you. You're in a world that has been set up, but it won't be like that forever. But you know, one of the best examples I give is, I used to box in South Africa, not professionally, but I had a friend of mine who was a world champion, and we used to box together. And he used to punch me in the face. And I used to get so angry, and I would lose it, and I would come flailing at him. And then one day he stopped me and he said, why are you angry? I said, because you punched me in the face. And he said, that's what we're doing here. And he said, when you step into this ring, surely you know that you're going to get punched in the face. And I said, I don't like it. He said, no one likes getting punched in the face. He said, but what you've got to do is, you've got to acknowledge where you are. And once you go, okay, I'm in a world where I'm going to get punched in the face. What are the things I can do to mitigate that? You go, practice blocking, think about how I can jab back, and most importantly, temper it, because when you're angry, you don't see through the rage. You no longer think of how to get back. And if you lose that, you lose every advantage you have. And that is the one thing. And
Hi, that was a quote from the fantastic Trevor Noah. He has a book out on a crime, and it talks about all of the racist and hateful policies in South Africa that he grew up with and he learned to live with, as did millions and millions and trillions of people in the area and throughout the country and throughout the world. He's saying that you have to realize the rules of the world and what you can expect the world to give back to you. If you're in a country that is hateful, that hates you for the skin color, or it hates you because you are educated, or it hates you because you are poor, that is the world you're dealing with. And you as an individual probably won't be able to have any effect long term on what's going on, but you can do your bit. You can do something to help advance whatever it is that you care about. So if you care about children, you can volunteer or in some way help a person who needs help with reading, or who needs help with getting into a school, or who needs help getting a job. You can do your bit to help. And although you may not change what's going on in the world or your area or your local area, you will help one person and that person's family. And that can help a lot of people over generations. But the world has always been full of people who know things are wrong but do nothing to help. And so when we look at school shootings, we see a white child go in and murder 20 people. And everyone says, what is wrong with that kid? Why is that kid doing that? That kid is bad. Well, that's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. That is the way people are. People have always abused other people for whatever reason. They have gone out during slave times and abused people because they were of a different color, or they came from a different area of the world, or they didn't speak the language that the person who was doing the abuse wanted them to speak, or they were disabled and the people who met them didn't like them having this disability. It's always been that people have abused others, and normally people watch. Many people knew that the evils of slavery were bad, they were unjust. It was crazy to hate people just because of their skin color. But they went along with the program because that's the way it was. And people felt, hey, this is making us a buck. Go ahead, beat the guy. Killing, torturing, that works. It brings us in more money, and we can keep doing this generation after generation. And we will, as a family, become billionaires because of his work. He will suffer, his family will suffer, but they don't matter. They are less than. And that's the way the world is and has always been. We know that as humans. We know these are things that people do. We see this among various communities. People abusing others, people hating others for crazy reasons, but they find they can do it, and so they do it, and they continue to do it because there is no reason for them to stop. But what happens when people start to step in? When people start to say, hey, this is wrong. When people say, no, you can't hang a black man just because he's black. No, you can't hang Joe because Ben got killed and Joe had nothing to do with it, and you want to take your revenge out on a black man, so you're going to kill Joe. That doesn't do anything about Ben's death, Ben's injuries, Ben's problem. But people stand around and allow these things to happen. And they go on for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And it's just the way people are. People will stand around and watch abuse and not do anything to intervene. So why should we be surprised when a student goes in and kills a whole classroom, including the teachers? Why should we be surprised when, while that student is doing that over a long period of time, nobody goes in to intervene, even though they have the ability to intervene? Why are we surprised today when that happens, when we know that that is what happens with humans? People see a problem, but no one will intervene. How often do we see students who are turned over to police for doing kid-like things in a school, making kid-like threats in a school? Instead of being treated by educators or educational administrators, they turn the child over to a policeman who then takes them to jail, who then gives them a record, who then puts a lot of negative thoughts in the kid's head about how he is incorrigible and will probably lead to future problems for that child. But nobody steps in. These are times when the child can't correct things for himself. He must have outside help. He must have a supporter. He must have somebody who's looking out for his welfare. But nobody steps in. How many times do we see a youth being abused by a parent or by school bullies, but nobody steps in? How many times do we hear of prisoners being abused by prison staff or other inmates and nobody steps in? All of these things are a picture of our society. It is a picture of who we are, and it is a picture of how things have been in the past and will be in the future, because nobody changes enough to want to step in and help. So you know where you are. You know what kind of people you're dealing with. You know what kind of abuse you may enter into, or that may find you and abuse you. And you know that often, most of the time, nobody will step in to help you. You will, for almost all of your life, be on your own. Nobody's going to step in when you are placed in that position of being abused, because that's how people are, and we know that. You have to expect that nobody will be there when you want them to step in. So you must know how to protect yourself. You must know how to read. You must know how to understand the law. You must know how to respond when somebody comes and tries to abuse you. If you're on the road, if you're in your car and you get stopped by a policeman, and the policeman says to you, "Do you know why I stopped you?" You should not answer, "Because I was going 10 miles over the speed limit." No, he is setting you up for abuse. You have now confessed to a crime. Even 1 mile over the speed limit is against the law. You cannot go faster than the speed limit. So you know that you are on your own. You have to be able to protect yourself. You have to have knowledge of the law. You have to have knowledge that the speed limit was 25 miles per hour where you were, and that you cannot say you were going 26 miles per hour when the policeman asks you that question. You have to learn how to defend yourself, and you have to know how to respond when somebody tries to abuse you. You also have to learn that this abuse is expected. We all expect to be abused periodically by somebody. It may be a government person, it may be a person we know, like a neighbor, it may be a family member, it may be somebody we work with, it may be somebody in the educational system. Somebody is going to try to abuse you, because that's how people often interact. And you must be prepared when that abuse occurs. You must be able to recognize the abuse, and you must be able to respond appropriately. You must know that anger does not help anything when you are being abused. Anger does not normally give you the right response. You must be able to say, "Well, this policeman is pulling me over because, maybe because I was black, and he has been trained through his life to go after black people, because then he can get his quota of traffic stops and he can keep his job and he can do better in his life." It doesn't mean that you need to totally accept the abuse, but you must know that this abuse is a string of abuses that has been perpetrated on every person around you, and sooner or later it's going to hit you too. Respond appropriately. Learn how to respond. Don't let wild emotions take over so that you accelerate or increase the abuse or make your situation even worse. You have to put it all in perspective and say, abuse is to be expected. How will I respond to the abuse? How will I protect myself from the abuse? How will I get out of my particular situation? and not get back here again. For women, the abuse may be sexual as you get older, especially. But for some kids, it starts in as you're a toddler. No, they're not going to know how to protect themselves from the abuse, which is why they have parents who are supposed to help them get rid of abusers. But as you get older, you know that people will be out there to abuse you. How can you handle the abuse? How can you protect yourself from the abuse? How you can get out of this situation and not get back into it again? If you're entering a house and the person says negative things to you, attempts to hit you, or attempts to spit on you, you know that you need to quickly get out of that house in a manner that you're not hurt and never ever return. Abuse is something that is generational. When we see a child go in and kill all of his classmates, and the parents say, you have to understand the child, you really have to go back and look at generation after generation after generation in that family. What has been going on in that family and passed down over generations that would bring that sort of response to one of the children, that they would want to do that, hurt or kill other children. It doesn't start with just one child normally. It's been in that family for a long time, and it may go back hundreds of years where you can find things going on that eventually will lead to persons being created who have bursts of hateful responses against others. And you might be one of the victims, or your family member might be a victim. But these are things we have to know. We have to stop the hate, the abuse, as early as possible. A lot of the crimes in the United States would not have happened if they had not abused people based on race for so many hundreds of years. All of this stuff comes back to haunt us, and we must move to be better people and to reduce, probably not eradicate, but reduce the hate, one person against another. Well, that's it for now. Please like and subscribe.